The red silk dress felt like chains. Serena Thompson stood at the altar, her hands trembling so badly she had to clasp them together to hide the shaking. The cathedral was packed with people she didn't know, their eyes boring into her back like daggers. Camera flashes popped like small explosions. News crews lined the walls. The entire city of Boston had come to watch her marry a man she'd met only twice before. Charles Hartwell stood beside her, tall and imposing in his dark gray suit. At 53 he was 30 years older than her. His face was lined with years she hadn't lived, his hair silver at the temples. Forbes called him ruthless. The business world called him brilliant. Her friends called her crazy. But they didn't know. They didn't know about her mother lying in a hospital bed, the cancer eating through her body while the bills piled higher than Serena could ever pay. They didn't know about her younger brother, Terrence, whose scholarship had fallen through, leaving him one semester away from dropping out of college. They didn't know about the eviction notice, the empty refrigerator, the nights Serena cried herself to sleep wondering how she'd failed everyone she loved. The priest's voice droned on, but Serena couldn't hear the words. Her vision blurred. The marble floors seemed to tilt beneath her feet. This was really happening. She was really doing this. Do you, Serena Marie Thompson, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? The cathedral fell silent. 200 people held their breath. Serena felt the weight of their judgment, their pity, their disgust. Gold digger, they were thinking. Desperate. Selling herself like, I do. Her voice came out as a whisper. Charles turned to look at her. His blue eyes were unreadable, distant. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, Charles leaned down and pressed a brief, cold kiss to her cheek. Not her lips. Her cheek. Like she was a relative, not a bride. The crowd erupted in polite applause that felt more like accusation. Serena wanted to run. She wanted to rip off the red dress and disappear. But she'd made a deal. Charles Hartwell had offered her family everything. Her mother's medical care, her brother's education, a place to live. All she had to do was marry him. No other conditions mentioned. No explanations given. She'd said yes within an hour. Now, as they walked down the aisle together, his hand barely touching her elbow, Serena wondered what price she'd really agreed to pay. Have you ever been so desperate that you'd give up your entire future for the people you love? What would you sacrifice to save your family? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to see how Serena's story unfolds, hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what happens next. The reception was held in the grand ballroom of the Hartwell Hotel, the crown jewel of Charles's hospitality empire. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high Serena felt dizzy looking up. Ice sculptures melted slowly on tables covered in white linen. A string quartet played soft music that nobody seemed to hear over the buzz of gossip. Serena sat at the head table, her red dress a bright spot of color in a sea of black tuxedos and evening gowns. Charles sat beside her, but he might as well have been a mile away. He spoke quietly with business associates who approached every few minutes, shaking hands, making promises, building his empire even on his wedding day. Nobody spoke to Serena. She picked at her food, a fancy chicken dish she couldn't taste. Her stomach was twisted in knots. Across the room she could see people staring, whispering behind their hands. An older woman in pearls looked at her with such open contempt that Serena had to look away. Mrs. Hartwell. A server appeared at her elbow, startling her. Mr. Hartwell requests that you join him at the podium. Serena's heart dropped. No, please no. She wasn't ready to give a speech, to pretend this was a real marriage, to smile for the cameras. But Charles was already standing, waiting for her. She had no choice. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as she walked to the small stage where a microphone stood. Charles took her hand, his palm warm and dry against her cold, clammy fingers. He guided her up the steps, steadying her when she stumbled. Thank you all for coming, Charles said into the microphone. His voice was deep, commanding. The room fell silent immediately. Today is a day of new beginnings. For those who don't know, Serena and I have chosen to build a life together, and I couldn't be more grateful. Serena wanted to laugh. Chosen. Right. As if she'd had a real choice. Marriage is about partnership, Charles continued. About supporting each other's dreams and goals. About building something meaningful together. He was good at this, Serena realized. Good at making pretty speeches that sounded sincere. She wondered how many business deals he'd closed with the same smooth words. So today I want to give my wife a wedding gift, Charles said. He turned to face her fully and something in his expression changed. Softened. Serena, you told me during our second meeting that your biggest dream was to help the neighborhood where you grew up. You said those kids deserved a safe place to learn, to play, to become who they're meant to be. Serena's breath caught. She'd said that. She'd been rambling nervously, filling the silence during their awkward dinner at a restaurant too expensive for her to feel comfortable in. She hadn't thought he was actually listening. Charles reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He handed it to Serena and she took it with shaking hands. "Open it," he said gently. The entire ballroom watched as Serena tore open the envelope. Inside were legal documents, official-looking papers with gold seals and signatures. She scanned the first page, not understanding. Then the second page. Then the third. Her knees went weak. "This can't be real," she whispered. "It's real," Charles said. He took the microphone again, addressing the crowd. "I've purchased the old community center on Morrison Street in Roxbury. Full renovations begin next week. The center will offer after-school programs, tutoring, sports, arts, and a safe space for any child who needs it. The deed is in Serena's name. There's a trust fund of $5 million to operate the center for the next 20 years. This is her gift, her project, her dream." The ballroom erupted. Camera flashes went crazy. Reporters shouted questions. People gasped and applauded and looked at Serena with new eyes, confused eyes, shocked eyes. Serena couldn't move. $5 million. A whole community center. In her name. Not his. Hers. "Why?" she whispered to Charles, but the microphone picked it up, broadcasting her confusion to everyone. Charles smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Because kindness matters," he said simply. "Because those kids matter. Because you matter." Serena felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't understand. None of this made sense. Charles Hartwell was supposed to be cold, calculating, cruel. Everyone said so. The tabloids said so. But this was something else entirely. "Thank you," she managed to say. "Thank you." Charles squeezed her hand once, then released it. The party continued around them, but everything had changed. The whispers now were different. Confused. Curious. No longer quite so condemning. As they left the stage together, Serena clutched the envelope to her chest like a lifeline. Her mind raced with questions. What kind of man gives such a gift to a woman he barely knows? What did he expect in return? What was the catch? Because there had to be a catch. Billionaires didn't just hand over millions of dollars and community centers out of the goodness of their hearts. Did they? That night, as Serena lay alone in her new bedroom in Charles's mansion, she stared at the ceiling and wondered what her life had become. The house was massive, cold, intimidating. Charles had shown her to her room, a suite of rooms actually, and then disappeared to his own wing of the house. Separate bedrooms. He hadn't even mentioned sharing a bed. Serena should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt more confused than ever. The deed to the community center lay on her nightstand, proof that today had really happened. She'd married a stranger. That stranger had given her the means to change hundreds of lives. And now she lived in a mansion with a man she didn't understand at all. Outside her window, Boston glittered with lights. Somewhere in that city, her mother was resting comfortably in a private hospital room with the best care money could buy. Somewhere, her brother was sleeping peacefully, knowing his dreams of becoming an engineer were safe. And here Serena was, a wife in name only, holding the deed to hope itself, wondering what came next. Sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, she dreamed of children laughing in a bright, safe space, and of a man with silver hair and kind eyes who made no sense at all. Sunlight poured through the tall windows so bright it hurt. Serena woke slowly, disoriented. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came crashing back. The wedding. The gift. The mansion. She was married. The thought made her stomach flip. She sat up in bed, looking around the room properly for the first time. Last night she'd been too overwhelmed to notice much. Now she could see that her bedroom suite was bigger than the entire apartment she'd shared with her mother and brother. The walls were painted a soft cream color. The furniture was elegant but comfortable. Large windows overlooked a garden with trees and flowers she didn't recognize. On a chair near the door, someone had laid out fresh clothes. A simple blue dress, comfortable flats, and a note. Serena picked up the note with trembling fingers. "Good morning, Serena. Please join me for breakfast when you're ready. The kitchen is down the main staircase. Turn left, third door on the right. Take your time. No rush. Charles." His handwriting was neat, precise. The note was polite, not demanding. Still, Serena's anxiety spiked. This was it. The real beginning. Last night had been a show for the cameras. This morning was real life. She showered quickly in the enormous bathroom, then put on the blue dress. It fit perfectly. How did he know her size? She pushed the thought away and made her way downstairs, following his directions. The mansion was even more impressive in daylight. High ceilings, original artwork on the walls, floors so polished she could see her reflection. Everything screamed money, old money, the kind of wealth that built hospitals and named them after your grandparents. She found the kitchen easily. It was huge, all stainless steel and marble counters. Charles sat at a small table by a window reading a newspaper. He wore khaki pants and a green button-down shirt, casual, relaxed. He looked up when she entered. "Good morning," he said, standing. "Always the gentleman. I hope you slept well." Yes. Thank you." Serena hovered in the doorway, unsure what to do. Charles pulled out a chair for her. "Please sit. Are you hungry?" Mrs. Chin prepared quite a spread. An older Asian woman bustled in from a side door, carrying plates of food. She had a warm smile and bright eyes. "Good morning, Mrs. Hartwell. I'm Louise Chin, the head housekeeper. Please let me know if you need anything at all." She set down plates of scrambled eggs, fresh fruit, toast, bacon, and pastries. More food than Serena had seen in months. Her stomach growled loudly. Mrs. Chin laughed. "That's what I like to hear. Eat up, dear." As Mrs. Chin left, Serena stared at the food. It felt surreal. Yesterday she'd been counting pennies for the bus. Today she was eating breakfast in a mansion with a billionaire. "Go ahead," Charles said gently. "Please." Serena picked up a fork and started eating. The eggs were perfect. The fruit was fresh and sweet. She tried to eat slowly, politely, but she was so hungry that she finished her plate quickly. Charles pushed the platter of toast toward her. "More? I shouldn't." "Serena." He waited until she looked at him. "You're my wife. This is your home now. Everything here is yours as much as mine. Please don't hesitate. Ever." His tone was firm but kind. Serena took another piece of toast, spreading jam on it carefully. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Charles folded his newspaper and set it aside. "We should talk about expectations," he said. "Here it comes," Serena thought. "The rules. The conditions. The real price." "I know this situation is unusual," Charles continued. "You agreed to this marriage to help your family. I respect that. I respect you for it." Serena said nothing, waiting. "I want to be clear about something," Charles said. He looked directly at her, his blue eyes serious. "I don't expect anything from you that you're not willing to give. This house has multiple wings. You have your own space. I have mine. You're free to come and go as you please. I won't control your time, your choices, or your life." Serena's fork clattered against her plate. "I don't understand." "What don't you understand? Why would you do this? Marry me, give me all that money for the community center and then expect nothing in return? It doesn't make sense." Charles leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Do you believe that every transaction requires payment?" "In my experience, yes." "That's sad," Charles said softly. "And I'm sorry the world has taught you that." Serena felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I'm not naive. Men like you don't just give things away." "Men like me?" Charles raised an eyebrow. "What kind of man do you think I am?" "Rich, powerful, used to getting what you want." "All true," Charles admitted. "But you're missing something important. I'm also old enough to know that money isn't everything. I'm old enough to understand that loneliness is worse than poverty. And I'm old enough to remember kindness when I see it." "Kindness?" "Your father," Charles said. "Thomas Thompson. Do you remember him?" Serena's chest tightened. Her father had died when she was 12. "Of course I remember him. When I was 25 years old, I was working 3 jobs to put myself through business school. I was driving a delivery truck on weekends to make ends meet. One night, my truck broke down in Roxbury. It was late, dangerous. I had no money for a tow truck." Charles paused, his eyes distant with memory. "Your father stopped. He was coming home from his shift at the warehouse. He didn't know me. I was some white kid broken down in his neighborhood. But he helped me anyway. Spent 2 hours fixing my truck in the dark. Refused to take any money when I offered. Said someday I should just help someone else who needed it." Serena felt tears prick her eyes. That sounded exactly like her father. "I never forgot that," Charles said. "I built my company. I made my money. But I never forgot the man who helped me when he didn't have to. When I heard about your situation, about your mother's illness, about what you were going through, I saw an opportunity to repay that kindness." "So this is charity?" Serena's voice came out bitter. "You feel sorry for me?" "No." Charles's voice was sharp. "This is gratitude. There's a difference. Your father gave me something priceless that night. He gave me faith that good people still exist. I'm trying to honor that." Serena didn't know what to say. Her father had never mentioned this story. She wondered if he'd even remembered it. He'd helped so many people over the years, always giving, always kind, even when they had nothing to give. "The community center," Charles continued. "That's not charity either. That's investment. You told me you wanted to help those kids. I believe you. I believe you'll make something meaningful happen. And I believe those kids deserve that chance." "And the marriage?" Serena asked quietly. "Where does that fit in?" Charles was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "I need to be honest with you about something. My business partner, Gerald Fisher, has been pressuring me to merge our companies through marriage. He has a daughter. He wanted me to marry her. I refused." "Why?" "Because I don't love her. Because business and marriage shouldn't mix that way. Because I'm too old to be making decisions based on pressure." Charles ran a hand through his silver hair. "My late wife, Margaret, died 3 years ago. Before she passed, she made me promise I'd marry again. She didn't want me to be alone. I've been avoiding that promise, but Gerald kept pushing." "So you married me to avoid marrying his daughter?" "I married you because your situation gave me a legitimate reason to refuse Gerald. But also because I genuinely wanted to help your family. And because—" He hesitated. "Because I thought maybe we could help each other." "Help each other how?" "You needed financial security. I needed a buffer from business pressures. We both needed something. Maybe we can make this work as partners, as friends, without expectations beyond basic respect and kindness." Serena turned this over in her mind. It was transactional, yes, but he was being honest about it. He wasn't pretending to love her. He wasn't making promises he couldn't keep. He was offering a partnership, nothing more. But nothing less either. "What happens if you change your mind?" Serena asked. "What if you decide you want more from me than I can give?" Charles met her eyes steadily. "Then I'll give you an annulment, a generous settlement, and you'll keep everything I've already given you. The community center, the trust fund, everything. I'll put it in writing today if you want." "You'd do that?" "I would. Because my word means something. And because you deserve to feel safe in your own home." Serena felt something shift in her chest. This strange, quiet man wasn't what she'd expected. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't controlling. He was just lonely. Like her. "Okay," she said softly. "Partners." Charles smiled and it transformed his face. Partners. They finished breakfast in more comfortable silence. When Mrs. Chen came to clear the plates, she smiled at them both like she knew something they didn't. "Mr. Hartwell," she said. "The contractor called about the community center. He wants to know if you want to inspect the space before renovations begin." Charles looked at Serena. "Do you want to see it? We could go this morning if you're free." "Really?" Serena's heart leaped. "We can go now? It's your building. We can go whenever you want." 30 minutes later, they were in Charles's car, a simple black sedan that didn't scream wealth. He drove through Boston with ease, navigating traffic like he'd done it 1,000 times. As they crossed into Roxbury, Serena felt herself relax. This was her neighborhood, her home. They pulled up in front of the old community center on Morrison Street. Serena had passed this building countless times growing up. It had been abandoned for years, windows boarded up, graffiti covering the brick walls. Now there were construction trucks parked outside and workers moving around. A man in a hard hat approached as they got out of the car. "Mr. Hartwell, good to see you. And you must be Mrs. Hartwell." He shook Serena's hand warmly. "I'm Tony Russo, the contractor. I have to say, this is going to be an amazing project." He led them inside. The space was gutted, empty, but Serena could see the potential. High ceilings, good bones, plenty of natural light through the tall windows. "We're planning a full renovation," Tony explained, showing them blueprints. "New floors, new walls, updated electrical and plumbing. The main room will be a multi-purpose space for sports and gatherings. We'll have classrooms here, a computer lab here, a library here." Serena walked through the space, her mind racing with possibilities. She could see children here, laughing, learning, safe. She could see teenagers doing homework in the library. She could see families gathering for events. "What do you think?" Charles asked, coming to stand beside her. "It's perfect," Serena whispered. "It's more than perfect. It's everything those kids need." "Good. Then make it happen. This is your project, Serena. Hire staff, plan programs, make decisions. I'll handle the financial side, but the vision is yours." "I don't know where to start." "Yes, you do," Charles said firmly. You know exactly what these kids need because you were one of them. Trust yourself. As they left the construction site, Serena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe her life wasn't over. Maybe it was just beginning. On the drive back, Charles said, I have some business meetings this week, but I'd like us to have dinner together in the evenings if you're comfortable with that. I think we should get to know each other at least a little. I'd like that, Serena said. And surprisingly she meant it. That night, lying in her comfortable bed in her beautiful room, Serena thought about her strange new life. She had a husband who expected nothing but kindness. She had resources to change lives. She had hope. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. The first week in the mansion passed in a blur of adjustment. Serena woke each morning to sunlight and silence, so different from the chaos of her old apartment where sirens wailed and neighbors shouted at all hours. Mrs. Chen brought fresh flowers to her room daily. The kitchen was always stocked with more food than Serena could imagine eating. But the loneliness was crushing. Charles worked long hours. He left early each morning for his office downtown and returned late in the evening. They had dinner together, quiet meals where they made small talk about their days, but it felt stilted, formal. Like two strangers sharing space, which is exactly what they were. Serena tried to fill her days. She visited her mother at the hospital, amazed at the difference proper care made. The color was returning to her mother's face. The doctors were optimistic. Her brother, Terence, came by the mansion one evening, his eyes wide at the grandeur. Serena, this is insane, he said, standing in the marble foyer. You're really living here? I really am. And he's treating you okay? Mr. Hartwell? He's kind, Terry. Surprisingly kind. Terence looked skeptical. Nobody's that kind for free. I know it seems that way. But so far he's kept every promise. After Terence left, Serena wandered the mansion feeling unmoored. She had everything she thought she wanted. Security, safety, resources. But she felt like a ghost haunting someone else's life. On Friday evening, Charles came home earlier than usual. He found Serena in the library, a room filled floor to ceiling with books. She'd been drawn to it all week, finding comfort in the familiar smell of paper and binding. Reading anything good? Charles asked from the doorway. Serena looked up, startled. Just browsing. You have an incredible collection. It was Margaret's mostly. My late wife. She loved to read. Charles stepped into the room, his hands in his pockets. She used to say that books were windows into other lives, and she wanted to see as many lives as possible. She sounds wonderful. She was. Charles pulled a photo album from a shelf and handed it to Serena. Would you like to see? They sat together on the leather sofa as Charles showed her pictures of Margaret. She'd been beautiful, with dark hair and a bright smile. In every photo she was laughing or mid-motion, full of life. We were married for 25 years, Charles said. Met in college. She was studying art history. I was buried in business courses. She made me see that there was more to life than profit margins. How did she die? Serena asked gently. Car accident. Quick. She didn't suffer, the doctors said. But I. His voice caught. I never got to say goodbye. Serena placed her hand over his. I'm sorry. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Charles cleared his throat and stood. I'm tired of us tiptoeing around each other like strangers. Tomorrow is Saturday. No work. Let's do something together. As friends. Like what? Surprise me. What would you want to do if you could do anything? Serena thought about it. I'd want to visit the community center again. See the progress. Maybe walk around the neighborhood, remember what it felt like when I lived there. Done. We'll leave at 10. The next morning they drove to Roxbury together. The construction on the community center was moving fast. The roof had been repaired, new windows installed. Inside, workers were putting up drywall and running new electrical lines. Tony Russo greeted them with enthusiasm. Mrs. Hartwell, I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to show you the paint samples for the classrooms. He spread out dozens of color swatches. Serena stared at them, overwhelmed. I don't know what to choose. What colors do you like? Charles asked. Bright ones. Cheerful. I always hated gray walls. Serena picked out a warm yellow, a soft green, a bright blue. Colors that make you feel happy when you see them. Perfect choices, Tony said. We'll get started next week. After the site visit, Serena led Charles on a walking tour of the neighborhood. She showed him the corner store where she'd bought penny candy as a kid. The park where she'd played basketball with her friends. The church where her father's funeral had been held. This is where I grew up, she said, standing on her old street. The buildings looked smaller than she remembered, more worn down. Third floor, apartment 3C. A group of kids played on the sidewalk, their laughter echoing. Serena watched them with a sad smile. I was one of them once, she said. Full of dreams, believing anything was possible. What changed? Reality. My dad died. Money got tight. Dreams felt like luxuries we couldn't afford. Serena turned to Charles. That's why the community center matters so much. Those kids need to keep their dreams alive longer than I did. Charles was quiet for a moment. Then he said, you know, you don't have to give up your dreams just because life got hard. I'm 23. I never finished college. What dreams do I have left? Serena, you're brilliant. I see it in how you talk about the kids, about the programs you want to create. You could go back to school. Study education, social work, whatever you want. I'll support it. That's not part of our agreement. Maybe it should be. Partners help each other grow, remember? The idea sparked something in Serena's chest. Could she really do that? Go back to school? Build an actual career? They walked back to the car slowly, chatting about the neighborhood. Charles asked questions, genuinely interested in her stories. He wasn't condescending or pitying. He just listened. That evening, over dinner, Charles brought it up again. I'm serious about school. If that's something you want, we'll make it happen. I'd have to study for entrance exams. My grades from before weren't great. So we'll hire tutors. Study guides. Whatever you need. Serena put down her fork. Why are you doing this? Because I can. Because you deserve it. Because... Charles hesitated. Because having you here has made this house feel less empty. I want you to be happy, Serena. Genuinely happy. Something warm unfurled in Serena's chest. She'd been so busy being suspicious, waiting for the other shoe to drop, that she hadn't let herself believe Charles might actually be sincere. Okay, she said. Let's do it. Let's make me a student again. Charles's face lit up with a smile. Excellent. I'll call my assistant Monday. We'll get you registered for prep courses. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Serena studied for her entrance exams in the mornings. A tutor named Helen Matthews, a retired teacher with gray curls and infinite patience, came 3 days a week. In the afternoons, Serena visited the community center, watching it transform from ruin to possibility. Charles adjusted his schedule to have dinner with her every evening. Their conversations grew easier, more natural. He told her about business challenges. She told him about her studies, her plans for the center. Sometimes they played chess after dinner. Charles usually won, but Serena was learning. One night, about a month after the wedding, Mrs. Chin knocked on Serena's bedroom door. Mrs. Hartwell, Mr. Hartwell asked if you'd join him on the terrace. He set up something special. Curious, Serena followed Mrs. Chin outside. The terrace overlooked the garden, and Charles had strung lights everywhere, creating a soft glow. There was a telescope set up, pointing at the clear night sky. Surprise? Charles said, looking pleased with himself. You mentioned you'd never seen the stars properly because of city lights. I thought we could change that. Serena approached the telescope, touched by the gesture. You remembered that? I remember everything you tell me, Charles said softly. He showed her how to adjust the telescope, pointing out constellations and planets. Serena had never seen anything so beautiful. The stars seemed close enough to touch, burning bright and clear. That's Jupiter, Charles said, standing close behind her so he could point. And over there, that's Mars. It's incredible, Serena whispered. They stayed on the terrace for hours, talking about space and dreams and the vastness of the universe. When Serena finally went to bed that night, she realized she was smiling. Her life here wasn't what she'd expected. It was better. Slowly, carefully, she was building something real. Not just with the community center, but with Charles. They were becoming actual friends. Maybe that was enough. Maybe friendship was the best foundation for any relationship. As she drifted off to sleep, Serena felt grateful. For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged somewhere. The nightmare came in the early hours of the morning. Serena was back in the hospital, watching her mother slip away, hearing the flat line of machines, feeling helpless and small. She woke gasping, tears streaming down her face, her heart racing. She couldn't stay in bed. The walls felt too close, the silence too loud. Without thinking, Serena pulled on her robe and wandered the dark hallways of the mansion. She found herself drawn to the library, that peaceful room full of books and memory. Light spilled from under the door. Charles was there, sitting in one of the leather chairs, reading by lamplight. He looked up when she entered, immediately concerned. Serena? Are you all right? Bad dream? she managed, wiping at her face. I didn't mean to disturb you. You didn't? I don't sleep well these days. Come sit. She settled into the chair across from him, pulling her knees up and wrapping her arms around them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Want to talk about it? Charles asked gently. Serena shook her head, then found herself talking anyway. I dreamed my mother died. Right there in front of me, and I couldn't save her. I just watched. That must have been terrifying. It's my worst fear. Losing her. She's all I have left of my family except Terry. If something happens to her. She's getting better, Charles reminded her. The doctors say her prognosis is good. I know. But the fear doesn't listen to logic. Charles set down his book and leaned forward. After Margaret died, I had nightmares for months. Always the same one. I'd be in the car with her, watching the other vehicle come toward us, unable to stop it. I'd wake up screaming. How did you make it stop? Time. Therapy. And accepting that some fears can't be completely erased. They just become part of who you are. Serena studied him in the lamplight. His silver hair was mussed from running his hands through it. He wore simple sleep clothes, looking more human and less like the polished businessman she saw at dinner. Do you ever regret it? She asked. This marriage? Taking on someone else's problems? Never. Charles's answer was immediate. You're not a problem, Serena. You're a person. A good person dealing with difficult circumstances. There's a difference. But you could have married someone you actually loved. I loved once. I don't expect to love like that again. But I do expect to have companionship, respect, maybe even friendship. What we're building here, it's more than I hoped for. Serena felt warmth spread through her chest. I feel the same way. Good. Now, since we're both awake and apparently not sleeping, want to watch something? I have every terrible action movie ever made on the streaming service. They ended up in the media room, a cozy space with a huge screen and comfortable couches. Charles put on an old action film, the kind where explosions happened every 5 minutes and the hero never got hurt despite being shot at constantly. It was ridiculous. It was perfect. They laughed at the implausible plot twists, threw popcorn at the screen during particularly bad dialogue, and made fun of the terrible special effects. By the time the movie ended, dawn was breaking outside the windows. I should let you sleep, Charles said. I'm not tired anymore. Serena surprised herself by reaching out and touching his arm. Thank you. For tonight. For not making me feel foolish about the nightmare. Everyone has fears, Serena. You're one of the bravest people I know. Brave? I married you to save my family. That's not brave. That's desperate. You sacrificed your entire life for people you love. You took a risk on a stranger. You're building something meaningful with the community center. That's courage. Charles stood, stretching. Now Mrs. Chen will have breakfast ready soon. Want to help me pretend we've been up for a reasonable amount of time? Deal. They spent that Sunday together, an easy companionship developing. Charles helped Serena study for her entrance exams, quizzing her on vocabulary and math. She helped him respond to emails, learning more about his business. In the afternoon, they visited the community center again. The renovations were nearly complete. The walls were painted in the bright colors Serena had chosen. New floors gleamed. Windows let in floods of natural light. It's really happening, Serena said, standing in the main room. This is real. It's real, Charles confirmed. Now comes the hard part. Staffing, programming, outreach. Are you ready? I think so. I've been making lists of programs. After school homework help, arts and crafts, sports leagues, computer classes. Maybe a summer camp program too. All excellent ideas. I'll have my HR department help you hire qualified staff. But remember, this is your project. Your vision. Don't let anyone tell you what those kids need. You know better than any consultant ever could. Serena turned to him, overwhelmed with gratitude. I don't know how to thank you for this. You don't have to thank me. Just make it everything you've dreamed. That evening they had their first real argument. Charles had invited several of his business associates for dinner, including a man named Gerald Fisher. Serena recognized the name from their breakfast conversation weeks ago. This was the man who'd wanted Charles to marry his daughter. Gerald was smooth, polished, probably in his early 60s. He brought his daughter, Rebecca Fisher, a woman in her 30s with cold eyes and a fake smile. So you're the new Mrs. Hartwell, Rebecca said, looking Serena up and down with obvious disdain. How unexpected. Serena bit back a sharp response. She wore a green dress tonight, one Charles had picked out. It was beautiful and fit perfectly, but Rebecca made her feel underdressed anyway. Dinner was tense. Gerald made pointed comments about business decisions Charles had made, questioning his judgment. Rebecca ignored Serena completely, talking over her whenever she tried to speak. "Charles," Gerald said over dessert, "we need to discuss the merger again. My proposal still stands. If you'd just be reasonable about the terms." "I've told you, Gerald. I'm not interested in a merger that benefits your company at the expense of mine. But with the right partnership we could dominate the market." Gerald glanced at Serena. "Though I suppose marriage changed your priorities. My marriage is separate from my business decisions." "Is it though? You married in quite a hurry. Right when I was suggesting a union between our families." Gerald's tone was pointed. "Some might think you were avoiding something." Charles's jaw tightened. "I married Serena because I wanted to. That's all the explanation anyone deserves." After the guests left, Charles apologized. "I'm sorry about that. Gerald can be difficult." "He hates me," Serena said. "And Rebecca looks at me like I'm dirt on her expensive shoes. They're just jealous. Ignore them." "How can I ignore them when they're right? I am from nothing. I don't belong in your world." "My world." Charles's voice sharpened. "Serena, this is your world too now. You belong here as much as anyone. More than people like Gerald who think money makes them superior. But I don't fit in. I don't know the right things to say, the right way to act." "Good. I don't want you to fit in with people like that." Charles took her hands. "I want you to be exactly who you are. Kind, genuine, real. That's worth more than all their polish and pretense." Serena wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. Could she really survive in this world? Or would she always be the outsider looking in? That night, unable to sleep again, Serena went back to the library. Charles wasn't there this time, but he'd left a note on the table. "For late night reading. Thought you might enjoy these, Charles." Next to the note was a stack of books. Not business books or classics but novels. Stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Stories about belonging and finding yourself. Serena picked up the first book and started reading. By the time the sun rose, she'd read half of it, lost in someone else's story, forgetting her own doubts for a while. Maybe Charles was right. Maybe she didn't need to fit in with his world. Maybe she just needed to be herself. The invitation arrived on thick, cream-colored paper. The Boston Business Council's annual gala. Black tie required. The most important social event of the season. "You don't have to go if you're not comfortable," Charles said, though Serena could see the hope in his eyes. "But I'd like you there. As my wife, as my partner." Serena looked at the elegant script. 3 weeks away. Plenty of time to panic. "I'll go," she heard herself say. "But I need help. I don't know what to wear to these things. I don't know how to act." "You act like yourself. That's enough." "Is it though? After that dinner with Gerald and Rebecca?" Charles sighed. "That was different. This gala is full of people from all walks of life. Business people, yes, but also community leaders, artists, educators. You'll fit in perfectly. I need a dress." "Done. I'll have a stylist come by this week." The stylist, an energetic woman named Sophia Martinez, arrived with racks of dresses. She took one look at Serena and smiled. "Beautiful bone structure. Great figure. This will be fun." Sophia pulled out dress after dress. Black ones, silver ones, gold ones. "Not black," Serena said firmly. "Agreed. Let's try this." Sophia held up a deep blue gown, the color of midnight. It had a simple silhouette, elegant but not fussy. When Serena tried it on, even she had to admit it looked stunning. "Perfect," Sophia declared. "You'll be the most beautiful woman there." The 3 weeks passed too quickly. Serena continued her studies, scored high on her practice entrance exams. The community center was ready to open. They'd hired staff, recruited volunteers, spread the word throughout Roxbury. The grand opening was scheduled for 2 weeks after the gala. Everything was falling into place. So why did Serena feel so anxious? The night of the gala arrived. Serena spent hours getting ready with help from Sophia and a makeup artist. When she finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The blue dress hugged her curves perfectly. Her hair was styled in soft waves. Diamond earrings, borrowed from Charles's collection, sparkled at her ears. She looked like she belonged. Charles waited at the bottom of the stairs. When he saw her, he stopped mid-step, his eyes widening. "Serena," he breathed. "You look incredible." He looked pretty incredible himself in his black tuxedo. Distinguished, handsome in a quiet way. For the first time, Serena felt a flutter of something beyond friendship when she looked at him. She pushed the feeling away. That wasn't part of their deal. The gala was held at the Four Seasons Hotel, a grand ballroom filled with hundreds of people. Crystal chandeliers. Live orchestra. Tables decorated with white roses. Serena felt her anxiety spike as they entered. Charles kept her hand firmly in his. Just breathe. Stay close to me. But almost immediately people approached. Charles was popular, respected. Everyone wanted his attention. He introduced Serena to dozens of people, a blur of names and handshakes. Some were kind, asking her questions about herself. Others looked at her with barely concealed curiosity or judgment. So you're the one who caught Charles Hartwell, an older woman in pearls said. Her tone made it clear she didn't mean it as a compliment. We caught each other, Charles said smoothly, his hand tightening on Serena's. Mutual decision. They moved through the crowd, Charles introducing her to business partners, charity organizers, city council members. Serena tried to smile, tried to be charming, but she felt like an imposter. Then she met Patricia Rodriguez. Patricia was probably in her 60s, with warm brown eyes and gray hair swept up in an elegant twist. She wore a red dress and had a smile that reached her eyes. Charles Hartwell, about time you got here, Patricia said, hugging Charles like an old friend. And you must be Serena. I've been dying to meet you. Patricia runs the city's largest network of family services, Charles explained. She's basically a saint. Hardly. Patricia laughed. But I do try to help where I can. Charles tells me you're opening a community center in Roxbury. Yes, the grand opening is in 2 weeks. Wonderful. We need more resources in that neighborhood. Maybe we could talk about partnership opportunities? For the first time all evening, Serena relaxed. Here was someone who understood, who cared about the same things she did. They talked easily about programs, funding, community needs. Patricia gave her contact information and promised to visit the center. I like her, Patricia said to Charles. She's got heart. Don't let these vultures intimidate her. I'm trying, Charles said. Dinner was served at round tables. Serena found herself seated next to a woman named Jennifer Park, who worked at a nonprofit focused on youth education. They talked throughout the meal, Jennifer enthusiastic about Serena's plans for the community center. Maybe this wouldn't be so terrible after all. Then came the speeches. The head of the business council, a pompous man named Richard Sterling, took the microphone. He talked about Boston's business community, about growth and opportunity. Then his eyes landed on Charles's table. I'd like to acknowledge one of our founding members, Charles Hartwell, Richard said. Charles has been a pillar of this community for decades. Recently, he made headlines with his unexpected marriage. Serena felt every eye in the room turn to her. Heat crept up her neck. Charles and his new bride, Serena, represent something important. They show us that love knows no boundaries, no differences. Richard's tone was patronizing, like he was talking about a charity case. We wish them all the happiness in the world. The applause was polite but cool. Serena wanted to sink through the floor. Ignore him, Charles whispered. Richard's an idiot. But the damage was done. For the rest of the evening, people looked at Serena differently. Like she was a curiosity, a project, proof of Charles's generosity rather than his actual wife. When they finally left, Serena was exhausted. In the car, she kicked off her heels and leaned her head back. I'm sorry about Richard, Charles said. That was inappropriate. He said what everyone's thinking. That you married down. That I'm some kind of charity project. That's not what I think. But it's what they think. And maybe they're right. Maybe this was all a mistake. Charles pulled the car over to the side of the road. He turned to face her fully. Listen to me. You are not a charity project. You are my wife. You are intelligent, compassionate, and strong. Anyone who can't see that isn't worth your time. You say that, but. No buts. Those people back there, most of them have money but no heart. You have both. You're building something that matters. In 20 years, they'll remember your community center long after they've forgotten Richard Sterling's pompous speeches. Serena felt tears prick her eyes. You really believe that? I know that. Charles reached over and took her hand. You belong in that ballroom as much as anyone. More than most. Don't let them make you feel less than you are. Something shifted in Serena then. She'd been so focused on fitting into Charles's world that she'd forgotten her own worth. The community center was real. Her plans were good. She had value beyond being Charles's wife. Thank you, she said softly. For believing in me. Always. They drove home in comfortable silence. When they arrived at the mansion, Charles walked her to her bedroom door like he always did. Good night, Serena. Wait. She caught his arm. Do you want to come in? Just to talk. I'm too wound up to sleep. Charles hesitated, then nodded. They sat on her sofa, still in their fancy clothes, and talked for hours. About the gala, about people they'd met, about their childhoods and dreams. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, Serena dozed off, her head falling onto Charles's shoulder. When she woke in the morning, she was in her bed, tucked in carefully. A note sat on her nightstand. You looked peaceful. Didn't want to wake you. See you at breakfast, Charles. Serena smiled, holding the note close. Whatever they had, it was good. It was real. And it was enough. Patricia Rodriguez called the next morning. Serena, my dear, do you have time for coffee? There's something I'd like to discuss. They met at a quiet cafe in Back Bay. Patricia ordered them both lattes and pastries, then settled into her chair with a serious expression. I need to tell you something about Charles, Patricia began. Something he probably should have told you himself, but knowing him, he hasn't. Serena's stomach dropped. Here it was. The other shoe finally dropping. What is it? About 15 years ago, your father, Thomas Thompson, did more for Charles than fix his truck. Much more. What do you mean? Patricia pulled out her phone and showed Serena an old newspaper article. The headline read, Local warehouse manager saves young businessman from robbery. Serena read quickly. Thomas Thompson had witnessed 3 men attempting to rob a young Charles Hartwell outside a bank. Thomas had intervened, scared the robbers off, and stayed with Charles until police arrived. Charles had been carrying a briefcase with contracts worth millions. Losing it would have destroyed him. I never knew this, Serena whispered. Thomas never talked about it. When reporters tried to interview him, he refused. Said he was just doing what anyone should do. But Charles never forgot. He tried to repay your father many times over the years. Offered him jobs, investment opportunities, assistance. Thomas refused everything. Said he didn't help people for rewards. That sounds like my dad. When Thomas died, Charles made sure your mother received an anonymous donation for the funeral expenses. He's been watching your family from a distance, making sure you were okay. When he heard about your mother's illness, about your situation, he saw his chance to finally repay the debt he felt he owed. Serena's head spun. So the marriage really was just about debt? About paying back what my father did? No, dear. Patricia's voice was gentle. If it was just about debt, Charles could have simply paid your mother's medical bills and called it even. But he saw an opportunity to help you specifically. To give you a future. And I think, though he'd never admit it, he saw a chance to not be so lonely anymore. Did he love his first wife? Margaret. Very much. They were true partners. Her death nearly broke him. He's been going through the motions ever since, throwing himself into work because it was easier than feeling. Then you came along. But he doesn't love me. Patricia smiled. Doesn't he? I watched you two at the gala. The way he looked at you, protected you, championed you. That's not obligation, Serena. That's care. Maybe even more. We have an agreement. We're partners, friends. Nothing more. And you're happy with that? Serena thought about it. Was she happy? She'd grown comfortable with Charles. She looked forward to their dinners, their late-night talks. She appreciated his kindness, his support. But was that enough? I don't know, she admitted. I never expected to feel anything for him. This was supposed to be a business arrangement. Life rarely goes according to plan, my dear. The question is, what do you want now? Serena didn't have an answer. That evening, Charles came home with exciting news. The entrance exam results came back. You passed. Top scores in your category. Really? Serena jumped up from the sofa where she'd been studying. I really passed? You really did. Boston University has accepted you for the fall semester. Education major just like you wanted. Serena threw her arms around him without thinking. Charles stiffened in surprise, then slowly wrapped his arms around her, hugging her back. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. For everything. For believing I could do this. You did it yourself. I just provided resources. Serena pulled back to look at him. Patricia told me about my father. About the robbery. About everything. Charles's expression shuddered. I should have told you myself. Why didn't you? Because I didn't want you to feel obligated. I didn't want you to think this marriage was just about repaying a debt. You deserve better than that. So what is it about? Really? Charles was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. When I first met you 2 years ago at your father's funeral, you were crying by his grave. You looked so lost, so heartbroken. I wanted to help then, but I didn't know how without seeming intrusive. You were at the funeral? In the back. I paid my respects quietly and left. But I never forgot you. When I heard about your situation when Gerald was pressuring me about marriage, I thought maybe we could help each other. But somewhere along the way... He paused. Somewhere along the way you stopped being a means to an end. You became important to me. Serena's heart raced. Important how? I don't know. I haven't let myself examine it too closely. Our agreement was for friendship, partnership. I don't want to push for more if that's not what you want. What if I don't know what I want? Charles smiled sadly. Then we keep going as we are. Friends, partners, no pressure. But Serena felt pressure. Not from Charles, but from her own confused feelings. She cared about him. More than she'd expected to. But was it enough? And was she just confusing gratitude with something deeper? Are you starting to see it? The way these two are falling for each other without even realizing it? Sometimes love grows slowly, carefully, in the quiet moments between big gestures. What do you think Serena should do? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this beautiful story unfolds. The community center's grand opening was 3 days away. Serena threw herself into final preparations, grateful for the distraction. Staff had been hired, programs finalized, supplies ordered. Local families had signed up their children. The mayor was coming to cut the ribbon. It was all happening so fast. Charles helped where he could, but mostly he gave Serena space to lead. He'd been right. This was her project, her vision. She knew what those kids needed better than anyone. The morning of the opening, Serena woke early, nerves jangling. Charles was already in the kitchen making coffee. Big day, he said, handing her a mug. Terrifying day. You'll be amazing. Those kids are lucky to have you. They drove to Roxbury together. A crowd had already gathered outside the community center. Families, kids, local business owners, reporters. The mayor arrived right on time, shaking hands and posing for photos. Charles stayed in the background, letting Serena shine. She gave a short speech about the center's mission, about giving kids safe spaces to learn and grow. Her voice shook at first, but gained strength as she spoke. This center exists because someone believed in me, Serena said, looking at Charles. Because someone saw potential instead of problems. That's what we want to give every child who walks through these doors. Belief. Hope. Opportunity. The crowd applauded. The mayor cut the ribbon. Doors opened and children poured inside, their excited voices echoing off the new walls. Serena showed them around. The computer lab with brand new machines. The art room with supplies waiting. The gym with basketball hoops and equipment. The library with hundreds of books. One little girl, maybe 7 years old, stopped in front of the library. Her eyes went wide. Are all these books for us? She asked. Yes, Serena said, kneeling down. You can read any book you want. You can even take them home. The girl rushed inside, running her fingers along the spines reverently. Serena felt tears prick her eyes. This was why it mattered. Charles found her later, standing in the main room watching children play. You did it, he said quietly. We did it. No, you did this. Your vision, your heart, your dedication. I just provided funding. You provided belief. That matters more than money. They stood together, watching the center come alive. It felt like a new beginning, not just for the kids but for Serena too. She'd gone from desperate and drowning to capable and strong. She'd built something meaningful. And Charles had been there every step, cheering her on. That night, exhausted but happy, they sat on the terrace under the stars. Charles had brought out champagne to celebrate. To new beginnings, he toasted. To partnership, Serena added. They clinked glasses, and in that moment, everything felt perfect. The night was clear, the stars bright. The community center was open. School started in a month. Life was good. Then Serena's phone rang. The hospital. Her heart dropped. It's my mother, she said, answering with shaking hands. Charles took her other hand, holding tight while she listened to the doctor's words. When she hung up, tears streamed down her face. She collapsed. They're running tests. They want me to come now. I'll drive, Charles said immediately. Let's go. The hospital hallways smelled like antiseptic and fear. Serena's heels clicked against the linoleum as she rushed toward her mother's room, Charles right behind her. Terrence was already there, pacing outside the door, his eyes red. They won't tell me anything, he said when he saw Serena. They keep saying to wait for the doctor. Serena hugged her brother tight. It'll be okay. Mom's strong. But she didn't feel strong. She felt terrified. Charles spoke quietly to a nurse, and within minutes the doctor appeared. Dr. Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen from the mansion, was a small woman with kind eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. Mrs. Thompson had a seizure, Dr. Chen explained. We're running tests to determine the cause. It could be related to her cancer treatment or it could be something else. We need to keep her overnight for observation. Can we see her? Serena asked. Yes, but she's sleeping. The seizure was traumatic. She needs rest. They entered the room quietly. Serena's mother, Monica Thompson, looked so small in the hospital bed. Machines beeped softly around her. And four dripped into her arm. But she was breathing steadily, her chest rising and falling with rhythm. Serena pulled a chair close and took her mother's hand. I'm here, Mom. We're all here. Charles stood by the door, giving them privacy but staying close. Terence sat on the other side of the bed, his head in his hands. Hours passed. Serena refused to leave. Charles brought coffee and sandwiches from the cafeteria. He convinced Terence to eat something. He made phone calls, rearranged his schedule for the next day, handled everything so Serena could focus on her mother. Around midnight, Monica's eyes fluttered open. Serena? I'm here, Mom. Serena squeezed her hand gently. How do you feel? Tired? What happened? You had a seizure. But you're going to be fine. The doctors are taking care of you. Monica's eyes found Charles standing in the corner. You came too. Of course, Charles said, stepping closer. Family sticks together. Something in Monica's expression softened. Thank you for taking care of my girl. She takes care of herself, Charles said. I just try to keep up. Dr. Chen returned, running more tests, asking questions. The news was cautiously optimistic. The seizure was likely a side effect of medication, not a sign of cancer progression. They'd adjust her prescriptions and monitor her closely. You can go home, the doctor told Serena. Get some rest. She'll be here when you come back tomorrow. But Serena didn't want to leave. Charles settled into a chair beside her. If you're staying, I'm staying, he said simply. They spent the night in the hospital, dozing fitfully in uncomfortable chairs. When dawn broke through the windows, Serena woke to find Charles watching her. You didn't have to stay, she said. Yes, I did. Why? Because you matter to me. Charles's voice was rough with exhaustion and emotion. Because when you hurt, I hurt. Because somewhere along the line, you stopped being an arrangement and became more. Serena's breath caught. Charles? You don't have to say anything. I know our agreement. I know what we promised each other. But I need you to know, when I woke up to your phone call last night, when I heard the panic in your voice, I realized something. I care about you, Serena. Deeply. Not as a partner or a friend. As more than that. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything yet. Just think about it. Think about whether this could be something real for you too. Before Serena could respond, Terence came back with coffee. The moment passed, but the words hung in the air between them. Monica was released from the hospital 2 days later with new medications and strict instructions to rest. Serena wanted to stay with her, but Monica insisted she go home. You have school starting soon, Monica said. You have the community center. You have a life to live, baby. Don't put it on hold for me. But what if something happens? Then you'll deal with it. But you can't stop living because you're afraid. Monica looked at Charles, who'd come to drive them all home. He's a good man, Serena. Whatever this marriage is, he's good to you. Don't take that for granted. At home that night, Serena couldn't settle. She wandered the mansion, ending up in the library where everything had started. Where she and Charles had first really talked. Charles found her there, standing by the window. Can't sleep? He asked. Can't stop thinking. About? About what you said at the hospital. About caring for me. Charles came to stand beside her. I meant it. Every word. I care about you too, Serena admitted. More than I planned to. More than makes sense given how this all started. Does it need to make sense? I'm 23. You're 53. We come from different worlds. We got married for practical reasons, not romantic ones. None of this makes sense. But does it feel right? Charles asked. That's the only question that matters. Serena turned to face him fully. In the lamplight he looked younger somehow. Vulnerable. Hope and fear mixed in his expression. It feels right when we talk at midnight, she said slowly. It feels right when you support my dreams. It feels right when you hold my hand at galas and stand beside me at hospital rooms. It feels right when I wake up and know you're somewhere in this big house. It feels right. Then maybe that's enough, Charles said softly. Is it enough for you? I'm not Margaret. I'll never be her. I don't want you to be her. I want you to be you. Serena, brave and brilliant and kind. Serena, who builds community centers and takes care of her family. Serena, who makes me laugh and challenges me and makes this house feel like home again. Serena felt tears slide down her cheeks. I'm scared. So am I. But I think we could be scared together. If you want. No pressure? No expectations? We just see where this goes. Exactly. Serena took a deep breath. Then she did something she'd wanted to do for weeks but hadn't let herself. She reached up and touched Charles's face, her palm against his cheek. He closed his eyes at the contact, leaning into her touch. Okay, she whispered. Let's see where this goes. Charles opened his eyes and what she saw there made her breath catch. Not just care. Not just friendship. Something deeper, warmer, more real. He cupped her face gently with both hands. May I kiss you? Yes. The kiss was soft, tentative, questioning. Serena's first real kiss with her husband, months after their wedding. It tasted like coffee and possibility. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. That was nice, Serena said, then laughed at how inadequate the word was. Very nice, Charles agreed, his thumb stroking her cheek. Can we do it again? Yes, please. They kissed again, longer this time, deeper. Serena's hands slid up to his shoulders, holding on. Charles pulled her closer, careful but passionate. When they finally stopped, both were breathing hard. We should probably talk about this, Charles said. Set boundaries, figure out what we want. Later, Serena said. Right now, I just want to be with you. Is that okay? More than okay. They settled on the sofa together, Serena curled against Charles's side. He wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. They talked quietly about everything and nothing. About hopes and fears. About the past and the future. Somewhere around 3 a.m, Serena fell asleep in his arms. Charles carried her to her bedroom, tucked her in, and kissed her forehead softly. Sweet dreams, Serena, he whispered. When Serena woke the next morning, she found a note on her nightstand. But this one was different. Last night was perfect. Let's have dinner tonight. Just us. A real date. If you want. I'll be hoping you say yes. Yours, Charles. Serena smiled, hugging the note to her chest. Yes, definitely yes. The dinner date happened in the mansion's formal dining room, but Charles had transformed it. Candles everywhere, soft music playing, flowers on the table. He'd sent Mrs. Chin home early so they had complete privacy. Did you cook? Serena asked, surprised to find Charles in the kitchen wearing an apron over his dress shirt. I tried. It's probably terrible, but I wanted to do something special. Dinner was actually pretty good. Pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread, a simple salad. Nothing fancy but made with care. They ate slowly, talking easily now that the tension between them had shifted into something warmer. Tell me something I don't know about you, Serena said. Like what? Anything. A secret, a dream, something real. Charles thought about it. I wanted to be a teacher when I was young. Not a businessman. A history teacher specifically. I loved reading about the past, about how societies changed and evolved. What stopped you? My father. He built this company from nothing and expected me to take it over. Teaching didn't pay enough, wasn't prestigious enough. So I did what was expected. Do you regret it? Sometimes. But then I think about what I've been able to do with money and influence. The community center, for example. As a teacher, I could have helped dozens of kids. As a businessman, I can help thousands. Different path, same goal. That's a generous way to look at it. What about you? Besides teaching, what do you dream about? Serena considered the question seriously. I want to write a book someday. About growing up in Roxbury, about the community, about resilience. I want kids who feel forgotten to see themselves in stories. That's beautiful. You should do it. Someday. Why not now? Start writing. You're about to be in college studying education. Perfect time to begin. You really think I could? Serena, you can do anything you set your mind to. I've watched you build a community center from nothing. A book is well within your capabilities. After dinner, they moved to the terrace again. Their spot. Charles had blankets and more wine waiting. They lay on the outdoor sofa together, looking up at the stars. I could get used to this, Serena said. Good. Because I'm not letting you go. She turned to look at him. Even if people keep judging us? Even if Gerald and his friends keep making comments? Especially then. Serena, their opinions don't matter. What matters is this. He gestured between them. What we're building here. That's real. When did you know? Serena asked. That you wanted more than partnership? Charles was quiet for a moment. Remember the night you had the nightmare? When we watched that terrible action movie? Yes. You fell asleep on my shoulder. And I sat there for 2 hours not wanting to move because I didn't want to disturb you. I realized I'd sit there forever if it meant you were comfortable. That's when I knew. That was almost 2 months ago. I know. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to pressure you. But yes, I've known for a while. Serena snuggled closer. I think I knew at the gala. When you defended me to Richard Sterling. When you said I belonged there as much as anyone. Nobody's ever championed me like that before. Then they were fools. They stayed on the terrace until the sky started to lighten with dawn. Charles walked Serena to her bedroom door like always, but this time she didn't want him to leave. Stay, she said softly. Serena, are you sure? We don't have to rush anything. I'm sure. I just want to be close to you. We don't have to do anything except sleep. Charles smiled. Okay. Let me change and I'll come back. He returned in sleep clothes, nervous and gentle. They lay together in Serena's bed, talking softly until sleep claimed them both. It felt right, natural, like they'd been doing this for years. The next few weeks passed in a blur of happiness. School started. Serena loved her classes, loved learning again, loved having dreams beyond survival. The community center thrived. Kids came every day after school, the building alive with activity and laughter. And Charles was there through it all. Supporting her, encouraging her, loving her in ways both big and small. He brought her coffee during late-night study sessions. He listened to her talk about her classes. He celebrated every small success. They were building something real, something lasting. One evening, about 2 months after their first kiss, Serena came home from the community center to find Charles in his study, looking stressed. Papers were spread across his desk, his laptop open to what looked like financial reports. What's wrong? She asked from the doorway. Charles looked up, surprised. Nothing. Just work problems. Charles, talk to me. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Gerald Fisher. He's making his move. Trying a hostile takeover of my company. If he succeeds, I could lose everything. Serena's heart dropped. How bad is it? Bad. He's been buying up shares, talking to board members, spreading rumors about my judgment. He's claiming the company is unstable because of personal issues. Personal issues meaning me? No. Don't think that way. But Serena could see it clearly. He's using our marriage against you. Saying you're distracted, not focused, making bad decisions. His opinion doesn't matter. But the board's opinion does. Charles, if I'm the reason you're losing your company? Stop. Charles stood, coming around the desk to take her hands. You're not the reason for anything except my happiness. Gerald is doing this because I refuse to be controlled. He wanted me to marry Rebecca, merge our companies his way, let him have influence over my decisions. I said no. This isn't about you. This is about power. What are we going to do? We fight. I have a meeting with the board next week. I'll make my case. Show them the company is stronger than ever. And if they don't listen? Charles was quiet for a moment. Then I lose the company my father built. But I won't lose you. Never you. Charles, you can't give up your whole legacy for me. It's not giving up. It's choosing what matters. You matter more than any company, any amount of money, any legacy. Serena felt tears stream down her face. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Charles pulled her into his arms. I love you, Serena. I should have said it sooner. I love you. Not the idea of you, not the convenience of you. Your laugh, your passion, your dreams, your heart. I love all of it. I love you too, Serena whispered against his chest. So much. And we're going to fight this together. We'll figure it out. They held each other in his study, surrounded by papers and problems, but together. Always together. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Charles prepared meticulously, gathering financial reports, growth projections, testimonials from satisfied business partners. Serena helped where she could, proofreading documents, making suggestions. The night before the meeting, she couldn't sleep. She found Charles in the library, also awake, staring at his notes. Hey, she said softly. Hey yourself. Can't sleep either? Worried about tomorrow. Charles set down his papers. Come here. She curled up beside him on the sofa. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said, we'll handle it. Together. I know. But I can't help feeling responsible. If we'd never married, Gerald wouldn't have ammunition against you. If we'd never married, I'd still be miserable and alone. I'll take you and Gerald's hostility over loneliness any day. You're supposed to be focused on the meeting, not comforting me. Comforting you is the best preparation I could ask for. You remind me what I'm fighting for. They fell asleep there, tangled together, facing whatever came next as partners. As lovers. As something neither had expected but both had needed. The boardroom of Hartwell Enterprises was cold, sterile, intimidating. 20 board members sat around a massive table, their faces neutral but their eyes judgmental. Gerald Fisher sat at the far end, looking smug and confident. Charles sat at the head of the table, his presentation materials organized before him. Serena sat in the gallery with other observers, her hands clenched in her lap. She wore a red dress, bright and bold, refusing to hide. "Gentlemen, ladies," Charles began. "Thank you for taking time for this meeting. I know Gerald has raised concerns about my leadership. I'm here to address those concerns directly." "By all means," Gerald said, his tone dripping with false politeness. "We're all eager to hear your explanations." Charles pulled up his first slide. Financial reports. "Our quarterly earnings are up 12%. We've secured 3 major contracts this year. Client satisfaction is at an all-time high. By every measurable metric, this company is thriving. Yet you've been distracted," one board member, an older man named Robert Chin, said. "Your marriage, the community center project, these are personal matters interfering with business." "Are they?" Charles pulled up another slide. This one showed news articles about the community center, local press, positive coverage of Hartwell Enterprises community investment. This distraction has generated more positive publicity than any advertising campaign we could have bought. Our reputation in Boston has never been better. "But you married hastily," another board member, Patricia's friend Jennifer Wu, said gently. "Some question your judgment." "I married a remarkable woman who has enriched my life in every way," Charles said firmly. "My personal happiness doesn't detract from my professional capabilities. If anything, it enhances them." Gerald leaned forward. "Charles, we all want you to be happy. But let's be honest. This marriage is unusual. The age difference, the circumstances, the speed. It raises questions about your stability." "My stability?" Charles's voice sharpened. "I've run this company for 25 years. I've grown it from a regional operation to a national presence. My stability isn't in question. Your motives are." "My motives?" Gerald feigned shock. "I'm trying to protect this company." "No. You're trying to control it. You wanted me to marry your daughter so you could influence business decisions through family connections. When I refused, you began this campaign to discredit me. Let's not pretend this is about the company's welfare. This is about your ego." The room fell silent. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. "That's a serious accusation," Robert Chin said. "It's the truth." Charles pulled out more documents. "These are records of Gerald's attempts to manipulate stock prices, to pressure suppliers into choosing between us, to spread false rumors about our financial stability. He's not protecting the company. He's trying to engineer a crisis so he can swoop in as savior." Gerald's face reddened. "Those documents are fabricated. They're from your own email server. Authenticated by a forensic expert." Charles looked at each board member in turn. "I'm not perfect, but I've always put this company first. Can Gerald say the same?" The meeting continued for 2 hours. Gerald tried to regain control, but Charles had been thorough. Every accusation was countered. Every concern was addressed. By the end, the tide had shifted. "We'll take a vote," the board chair, Elizabeth Park, announced. "All in favor of maintaining Charles Hartwell as CEO?" Hands went up. One by one, board members voted. When the count was done, 15 had voted for Charles. Only 5 for Gerald. Motion carries. Charles remains CEO. Elizabeth looked at Gerald coldly. "And I suggest you reconsider your position on this board, Mr. Fisher. We don't appreciate manipulation." Gerald stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. He glared at Charles with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Charles said calmly. "Go home, Gerald. Spend time with your daughter. Maybe try being happy instead of trying to control everything." Gerald stormed out. The other board members congratulated Charles, apologizing for doubting him. Charles accepted their words graciously, but his eyes were on Serena. She met him outside the boardroom. Without words, they embraced. "You did it," she breathed. "We did it. You gave me strength to fight." They drove home together, exhausted but victorious. Mrs. Chin had prepared a celebration dinner, somehow knowing they'd win. Patricia Rodriguez had even stopped by with flowers and congratulations. "I knew you'd pull through," Patricia said, hugging them both. "You two are stronger together than anyone gives you credit for." That night, alone finally, Charles and Serena sat in their favorite spot on the terrace. The city lights glittered below. The stars shone above. "I need to tell you something," Charles said. "About our marriage agreement." Serena's heart skipped. "What about it?" "When we got married, I told you that you could have an annulment anytime, that you'd keep everything. That offer still stands. Why are you bringing this up now?" "Because I need you to know you have a choice. We've crossed lines we agreed not to cross. We're in love now. But if that's not what you want, if you want out, I'll honor my word. No questions, no judgments." Serena turned to face him fully. "Do you want me to leave?" "God, no. I want you to stay forever. But I need you to choose it freely, not because you feel obligated." Charles Hartwell listened carefully. "I choose you. I choose us. I choose this life we're building. Not because I'm grateful, not because I feel obligated, but because I love you. Because you make me better. Because I can't imagine my life without you now." Charles's eyes shimmered with emotion. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, full of promise and love. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "There's one more thing," Charles said. "I want us to renew our vows. Properly. Not a spectacle for the press, not a business arrangement. Just us saying what we really mean." "When?" "Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next month, next year. I just want to marry you again for real this time." "Next month," Serena decided. "Give me time to plan something small and perfect." "Deal." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Serena balanced school, the community center, and planning their vow renewal. Patricia helped, offering advice and connections. Even Mrs. Chen got involved, offering to cater. They decided on a small ceremony in the mansion's garden. Just close friends and family. Serena's mother and brother. Patricia and a few other friends. No press, no spectators, no judgment. The community center continued to thrive. Serena hired more staff, expanded programs, secured additional funding. She was making a real difference, seeing the impact daily. Kids who'd been failing in school started getting better grades. Teenagers found positive outlets for their energy. Families had a safe space to gather. One afternoon, the little girl who'd been amazed by the library found Serena in her office. "Miss Serena?" she said shyly. "Hi, Kennedy. What's up?" "I wrote a story. Will you read it?" Kennedy handed over several pages of careful handwriting. Serena read the story, a sweet tale about a girl who found magic in books. It was beautiful, imaginative, full of hope. "This is wonderful," Serena said, her throat tight with emotion. "You're a real writer. Like you're gonna be?" "Exactly like that." Kennedy beamed. "When you write your book, can I read it?" "You'll be the first person I give it to. I promise." After Kennedy left, Serena sat in her office and cried happy tears. This was why it all mattered. This was what Charles had given her the chance to do. Change lives. Give hope. Build futures. She pulled out her laptop and opened a new document. At the top, she typed, "Growing in Roxbury, a memoir by Serena Thompson Hartwell." She'd taken Charles's name officially last week. It had felt right, cementing their partnership. Serena started writing, the words flowing easily. Her story. Her truth. Her journey from desperate survival to hopeful thriving. She wrote about her father, her mother's illness, her brother's dreams. She wrote about meeting Charles, the strange wedding, the even stranger marriage that became real love. When Charles came home that evening, he found her still typing, completely absorbed. "What's this?" he asked, reading over her shoulder. "My book. You told me to start, so I am." Charles kissed the top of her head. "I'm so proud of you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to try. For never giving up even when things were hard. For choosing love over fear." Serena saved her document and turned to him. "We both chose love. That's what makes this work." They had dinner together, talked about their days, made plans for the weekend. Normal, domestic, perfect. This was the life Serena had never dared to dream of. Security, love, purpose, partnership. Sometimes she still couldn't believe it was real. But Charles was real. The community center was real. Her book was real. All of it beautifully, wonderfully real. The morning of the vow renewal dawned bright and clear. Serena woke early, her heart full of anticipation. Today wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about standing before Charles and meaning every word. Patricia arrived to help her dress. They'd chosen a simple cream-colored dress, elegant but understated. Serena wore her hair natural, flowers woven into her curls. She looked like herself, which was the entire point. "You're glowing," Patricia said, adjusting Serena's dress. "This is how brides should look. Happy, excited, certain." "I'm certain. For the first time in my life, I'm absolutely certain about something." Downstairs, the garden had been transformed. White chairs arranged in a small semicircle. An arch covered in flowers. Soft music playing. No more than 20 people would attend. Just the people who mattered. Terrence walked Serena down the makeshift aisle, tears in his eyes. "Dad would be so proud of you," he whispered. "You did good, sis." "Thanks, Terry." Charles waited at the arch, and when he saw Serena, his face transformed. Pure love, pure joy. He wore a navy blue suit, no tuxedo, looking handsome and comfortable. This was the real Charles, not the CEO but the man she'd fallen in love with. They'd written their own vows. Charles went first, his voice steady but emotional. "Serena, when you walked into my life, you brought light into darkness. You reminded me that kindness matters, that hope exists, that love can surprise you when you least expect it. I promise to support your dreams, to champion your causes, to stand beside you through every challenge. I promise to laugh with you, cry with you, and build a life that honors both our pasts and our future. I choose you today and every day after. I love you." Serena took a shaky breath before speaking. "Charles, you saw me when I felt invisible. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You gave me the tools to build something meaningful, but more importantly, you gave me the confidence to try. I promise to be your partner in all things. I promise to love you not just for what you provide, but for who you are. The man who watches stars with me, who supports my crazy ideas, who makes this house a home. I choose you freely and completely. I love you." They exchanged rings. Not the ones from their first wedding, but new bands they'd picked out together. Simple gold, engraved on the inside with their renewed wedding date. "By the power vested in me," the officiant said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Again. Everyone laughed. Charles and Serena kissed, and this time it felt completely different from their first cold kiss at the altar months ago. This kiss was warm, real, full of promise and love. The reception was held on the terrace. Mrs. Chin had outdone herself with the food. There was cake, champagne, laughter, and joy. Serena's mother cried happy tears. Terrence gave a toast about second chances and new beginnings. Patricia pulled Serena aside. "I knew it," she said, smiling. "From the moment I met you both at the gala, I knew you'd end up here." "Really? Really? You two were so careful with each other, so respectful. That kind of foundation always leads somewhere beautiful." As the sun set, Charles and Serena found themselves alone for a moment, watching their small group of loved ones celebrate. "Happy?" Charles asked. "Completely. You." "More than I ever thought possible." Serena leaned against him. "We did it. We took a weird, practical arrangement and turned it into something real. You did that. You taught me how to live again. We taught each other." The party continued into the evening. Terrence danced with their mother, who looked healthier every day. Patricia told embarrassing stories about Charles's early business days. Friends laughed and ate and celebrated love. Around 10 o'clock, Charles and Serena slipped away to their bedroom. Not out of obligation or expectation, but because they wanted to be together. Wanted to start this new chapter of their marriage properly. Later, lying in each other's arms, they talked about the future. "I've been thinking," Charles said, "about retiring in a few years. Not completely, but stepping back. Letting younger people run the company." "Really? But you love Hartwell Enterprises." "I love you more. I love the idea of having time to travel with you, to see the world, to support your work without work consuming me. What do you think?" "I think that sounds perfect. And I've been thinking about the community center," Charles continued. "It's doing so well. What if we open more? In other neighborhoods that need them? We could make it a foundation, expand the model." Serena's eyes lit up. "I love that idea. We could help so many more kids. We could change the whole city. If you want to take on that challenge." "With you? I'll take on any challenge." They planned late into the night. Dreams upon dreams. A foundation helping children across Boston. Serena's book published. Charles's gradual retirement. Travel. Adventures. A life built on partnership and love. 6 months later, Serena stood at graduation, accepting her degree in education. Charles was in the audience, cheering loudly, embarrassing her and making her laugh. Her mother and Terrence sat beside him, equally proud. After the ceremony, as they celebrated with champagne at a nice restaurant, Serena reflected on how much had changed in less than a year. From desperate survival to hopeful thriving. From strangers to partners to lovers. From one struggling community center to plans for 5 more. Speech, Patricia called out, raising her glass. Serena stood, suddenly emotional. I don't have a prepared speech. But I want to say thank you. To all of you. Mom, Terry, Patricia, Mrs. Chin. You've supported me through this crazy journey. And Charles. She turned to her husband. You changed my life. Not just with money or opportunities, but by believing I was worth investing in. You saw potential where others saw problems. You gave me hope when I'd forgotten what that felt like. I love you. Thank you for choosing me. Charles raised his glass. I think we chose each other. And I'd make the same choice every day for the rest of my life. They toasted to new beginnings, to love, to the future. 5 years later, the Thompson Hartwell Foundation ran 7 community centers across Boston. Serena's book, Growing in Roxbury, had become a bestseller, inspiring readers nationwide. She'd gone on to write 2 more books and was working on a 4th. Charles had semi-retired, spending his time supporting the foundation and traveling with Serena. They'd visited 15 countries, collecting memories and photographs. He'd never been happier. Kennedy, the little girl who'd shared her first story with Serena, was now 12 and volunteering at the original community center as a junior mentor. She wanted to be a writer just like Miss Serena. One evening, Charles and Serena sat on their terrace, their favorite spot, watching the city lights. It had become a tradition, this quiet time together under the stars. Do you ever think about that first night? Serena asked. When you found me in the library after my nightmare? All the time. Do you think we would have ended up here if I hadn't had that nightmare? If we hadn't started those midnight talks? Yes, Charles said without hesitation. Maybe it would have taken longer. Maybe the path would have been different. But we would have found each other. We were always going to find each other. You really believe that? I know that. You and I, we were meant to be. Not because of some cosmic destiny, but because we were both ready to choose something better. Ready to choose love, kindness, hope. Those things led us to each other. Serena snuggled closer, feeling grateful for every moment, every choice, every step that had brought them here. I used to think happiness was something that happened to other people. That people like me just survived. And now I know happiness is something you build. Brick by brick, choice by choice, with someone who believes in you. We built this, Charles. Together. Best thing I ever built, Charles said, kissing her forehead. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. Somewhere in the city, kids were playing at a Thompson Hartwell Center, safe and hopeful. Somewhere, families were reading Serena's books, finding inspiration. Somewhere, lives were changing because 2 people had chosen to build something meaningful together. The marriage that started as a desperate arrangement had become a love story for the ages. Not because of grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but because of small, consistent choices. Choosing kindness. Choosing respect. Choosing each other, every single day. Serena thought back to her wedding day, standing at the altar in terror, marrying a stranger. If she could go back and tell that frightened girl what was coming, what would she say? She'd say, trust. Hope. Believe that good people still exist. Believe that kindness can change everything. Believe that love finds you when you're ready for it. But most of all, she'd say, the best is yet to come. And she'd be absolutely right.